everyone. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is a nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're very excited to be here with all of you again to celebrate Meet Me There, which is a monthly intergenerational poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction experience curated by transgender queer poet and sound artist Samuel Ace. Writers exploring genre and gender boundaries are a special focus of this series. Most months, Samuel pairs an established or mid-career artist with an up-and-coming writer for a reading by each artist and a discussion of the resonances between their works. However, for this event, we have paired two established writers with ties to Georgia. Franny Choi is an Atlanta native who now resides in the Northeast, and Soham Patel is an assistant editor at the Georgia Review. So I'm going to introduce all of our folks tonight and welcome everybody to the stage, and also welcome everyone who's watching from around the world. Thank you for being with us tonight. So first, again, is Samuel Ace. Samuel is a transgender queer poet and sound artist. His most recent books are Our Weather, Our Sea, Meet Me There, Normal Sex and Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash, and the chapbook What Started This Mess. Ace is the recipient of the Estrella Lesbian Writer Award and the Firecracker Alternative Book Award in Poetry, as well as a repeat finalist for both the Lambda Literary Award and the National Poetry Series. Recent work can be found in Ex-Puritan, Poetry, We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetry, PEN America, Best American Experimental Poetry, and many other journals and anthologies. A book-length poetic essay, I Want to Start by Saying, is forthcoming from the Cleveland State University Poetry Center in 2024. So we're very excited and always honored to get to have Samuel curating this amazing series and bringing all of his brilliant friends to hang out with us virtually and in person. So next we have Soham Patel, who is the author of the poetry collections To Afar From Afar, Ever Really Hear It, which was winner of the 2017 Subito Prize, chosen by Matthias Savaliana, I think, and All One in the End / Water, and of the chapbooks And Never Mind the Storm, New Weather Drafts, In Airplane and Other Poems, and Riva a Chapter. Recent poetry has appeared in Interim, Underbelly, and Prairie Schooner. We are also joined by Franny Choi, who is a poet and essayist. Their books include The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On, Soft Science, and Floating, Brilliant, Gone. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, the Paris Review, and elsewhere. A recipient of the Lily Rosenberg Fellowship, Princeton's Holmes National Poetry Prize, and the Elgin Award, Franny is faculty in literature at Bennington College and the founder of Brew and Forge. They are at work on an essay collection about Asian robot women, forthcoming from Echo. Franny's third book features poems about historical and impending apocalypses alongside musings on our responsibilities to each other and visions for our collective survival. Many have called our time dystopian, but The World Keeps on Ending and the World Goes On reminds us that apocalypse has already come in myriad ways for marginalized people. So thank you all for being here. For our folks who are watching at home, if you have questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat at any time. And when we get to the conversation part, Sam may incorporate some of your thoughtful questions into the chat. So once again, welcome and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, ER, and welcome everyone. Welcome especially Franny and Soham. Really wonderful to see both of you, and I'm excited to hear both of you tonight. Just want to say thank you, just a huge thank you to ER Anderson and Dr. Sir Rollins, who make this whole thing possible, as well as the entire Charis staff. There are just literally thousands of events that Charis puts on almost every single night. If you log in, there's an event if you get on their mailing list, and just really want to encourage everyone to buy not only these amazing writers' books that we have tonight, but really support Charis as one of the longest running independent bookstore is about to celebrate its 50th year anniversary, which is just amazing for an independent bookstore. Also, most of these, almost every single event is live. If it's in person, it's live streamed, available virtually after the fact, and you can find video recordings of almost every event on the YouTube channel, Charis's YouTube channel. So tonight, I'm honored to welcome two writers whose work is more important, I feel, than ever, given the violence that underlies our daily reality. I can't help but talk about the stream of just devastating images out of Gaza right now, Israel and the Middle East, which make it just more impossible than ever to look away from the genocide that comes from this war and all the others that have preceded it. I also can't help but acknowledge how almost impossible it is to live these days with the knowledge of what is actually happening right now, right at this moment in our time, and under our watch. Not in our name is the shout I chant and hear over and over, but who hears it? Who's changed by it? Or are we merely calling out into the void? Rather than introducing their work separately, I'd just like to speak briefly to what connects these extraordinary poets here with us tonight. In truth, when pairing Soham and Franny for a reading tonight, I didn't at first see the depth of those connections. But I believe that even in the spirit of their titles, of the titles of their new collections, these two writers are deeply aligned with each other. Soham Patel's just released All in the End, Water, and Franny Choi's latest collection, The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On, share a worldview that looks clearly and often brutally at the catastrophes, the genocides, the devastations brought onto the earth, not only in our time, but throughout the history of human beings on our planet. Patel and Choi ask what's left all in the end and after the world keeps ending. What do we do? How do we live? How do we love? How do we continue with living with our nightmares and what has already happened? Tonight, you'll have the opportunity to hear Patel evoke how the unaccountable coincidences of this moment correspond with the sheer grief of death. In the poem that begins, quote, Gerald calls it juju, Patel goes on to remember, quote, when his 3-year-old son Zuri asked me to be his fairy godmother just minutes before my dad texts me to tell me mine has died. I try not to cry while we are surrounded by bros in the new build your own bowl joint. Or in a very short poem that begins, the dog's interest still includes sticks and armpits. Patel addresses us, dear reader, I will say your name and say your body is a health system, a fucking temple. Yes, it may be almost over this world, and I thank you. Over and over, Patel brings memory, history, and the ruinations of climate change into conversation with the concrete and specific reality of a living moment. And like Patel, Franny Choi brings our constant present and past catastrophes into the present tense. How do we exist with the awareness of what's happened in the past or what is happening right now at this very moment? At the end of a long poem titled Science Fiction Poetry, a poem that lists innumerable dystopias, current, future, and past, Choi asks, what's the other opposite world? If we knew its name, could we call it? If we called it, would it come? The poem ends not with a period or a question mark, but with a semicolon, creating an opening or a possibility that's never a sure thing. In other words, can we possibly envision an outcome in light of our histories that does not end in utter catastrophe? Asking later, what's the point of grieving in the future tense? Choi shows us her nightmares, both real and projected, along with a mind in which many realities and outcomes exist at the same time. Both poets speak to the epigenetic memories passed down by our ancestors, memories which inevitably cross over into the catastrophes of our present. In the middle of a long poem, How to Let Go of the World, Choi lists how, in Flint, I turn on the tap and out comes war, wrapped in putrid cellophane. In Detroit, I flip the switch and boil water for tea. Substituting war for water, the poem continues to acknowledge how war has infected every bit of our sustenance. Toward the end of her collection, Patel offers not only solutions, but perhaps some life-sustaining personal actions we can take. Such as in the poem, we can sing to assemble new unmoved empires. What follows are not empty pablums or answers, but keys to survival. Quote, we can understand that the signals are equal to silk or sky. We can be this breath, and this one, and this one, and this. Choi, too, toward the end of the world keeps ending, and the world goes on, addresses a great-great-grand someone to acknowledge that, quote, what you gave me isn't wisdom, and I have no wisdom in return, just handfuls of life stock. Every day the sky is, miles are. We sing entangled, and the root world answers, and together we're making something of it, something of all those questions you left. Tonight, first we'll hear Soham Patel, and then Franny Choi. We'll then have time for a short discussion and questions from you all out there in Zoom land. Thank you all for being here. Soham?
Sound?
Thank you.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Is that me? Yeah? Is that me? Oh, my floating life. Do not save love for things. Throw things to the flood. Ruined by the flood. Leave the new unbought. All one in the end, water. I possessed the high word. The boy, my friend, played his violin in the great hall. That's from a poem by Lorene Niedeker called Paean to Place, and the place was water. Thank you, Sam. You are a miracle to me, and I'm so happy to be here with you. And Charis Books, this is a place I love to go to when I am in Atlanta. And Franny, I'm so excited to hear you read from this book, especially part 3, if you're taking requests. Part 3 is my favorite. And I'm excited to read to you all from my new book, All One in the End, Water. It takes the line from that Lorene Niedeker poem, from Paean to Place. So I'll read you a few pages here. And this first page is, it's a questionnaire disguised as a poem, or a poem disguised as a questionnaire. And so there are Q's, or questions, and A's, answers. So it's called A Questionnaire on the Subject of Expulsion and Relocation. A questionnaire on the subject of expulsion and relocation. Q. What becomes of each settler even after exile? A. Property damage. Q. Are insurances available? A. Storm, health, wealth, auto, life, water, wind, fire, employee, death, mass shooter, yes. Q. If the end of history has been here already and we've been through an infinite number of apocalypses already, A. Be vegan, stop with the plastic straws, change thy light bulb, buy a hybrid and a clean canteen? Yes, ands. The title of this next poem is the one Sam was reading from a bit ago. It's titled, We Can Sing to Assemble New Unmoved Empires. We can sing to assemble new, unmoved empires. We can count pills fast as my pharmacist laughs. We can wake up better filled with dough than sorrow. We can extend the lunch hour to match a pollinator's pace. We can go live in an ashram, write about the country life, live. We can rummage in front of reference materials. We can take trains, but only when we travel. We can shout in the rotunda all night. We can cellar shelve ourselves underground. We can move over to pronounce wreckages with tongued consonants. We can be careful to transfer signals from one tongue to another. We can understand that the signals are equal to silk or sky. We can be this breath, and this one, and this one, and this. We can make drawings of horizons meeting fields with watercolors. We can wave at a city by water, my heart. We can paint our faces so well. We can wait to see the new moon. We can protest, litter our victory, force through the watering traffic. We can keep calling our representatives, say ceasefire now. We can watermelon emoji. We can schedule a teach-in. We can donate automatic withdrawals monthly from our bank accounts to doctors without borders. We can stop dropped fire on lived on fields. We can learn to the oil co-execs in suits what to do new. We can shake a schoolhouse brick by brick. We can comfort and come and go like the weather. We can weaken and not just on the weekends. We can widen with riverbeds and dry, shift our shapes. We can say yes, and, but then and actually, because I'm in Georgia, this is a Georgia poem. ATL, Georgia. Millions of peaches. It's all taken from the internet. We're on the internet. All right. 10/25/1760, Georgia colony. State still bears my name, but King George II never set foot here. I was born in Germany, and when I succeeded my father, I became king. I signed the charter creating the colony. I, the last British monarch, led troops into battle fiercely with my son and heir, who allied himself openly with my political enemies. When he died prematurely, I did not attend his funeral and was succeeded instead by my grandson, George III, who would become America's last king. He died on 10/25/1760. This is a joint production of the GA Historical Society and GA Public Broadcasting. For more, go to Today in Georgia, history.org. I am on the land of the Muskogee Creek, 6/3/2023, Atlanta. Forest Defenders Collective were attending a concert peacefully in the wee Lowney Woods when they were surrounded by police on democracynow.org at native-land.cac language territory treaties mapped as a work in progress, not definitive boundaries to learn about Those contact the nations in question. I'll read one last from the book. And I want to read this one for Franny and for Sam. And I see some of you here. I wrote this for you all doing the work and have been doing the work a la Franny and Moten of the fugitive planning within the academy and out. And so I see you and I thank you for that. Thank you. The title of this one is Like Snow in the Sun, I Want to Stay, say. Like snow in the sun, I want to stay. Say opaque and at arm's length with screens and the satellites. How this new word we learned, beautiful, is so. We are a dangerous thing. Candles uttering against trees. We are dismantling from within, under an uncommon, and yet here to illuminate. Or else we'll correct or uncover. Our light awaits warm and burn. It means renewal. And I'll say to you one more. This is a poem. The title is Anonymous, and it's by Fadi Judah. Anonymous by Fadi Judah. People are a vast, deep sea. Oh, to be away from them is a ship. And dearly beloved, when I think of thee, I shudder like a sparrow. Graves don't thirst. Thank you so much.
Oh man, Soham, that was so beautiful, and I just feel so lucky every time I get a chance to hear your work. I feel it makes me feel like braver and like permission to be wilder and more wild-hearted and full-hearted, and it just means it means a lot to get to share this reading with you, Soham, and Sam, dear heart, Sam, we miss you so much. Up here in little Western Mass, come back. I mean, I know it seems like you don't have to, but come back sometimes.
I want to just check real quick. Can everybody, Sam, can you see Franny's video? Okay. So Franny, for whatever reason, your video has stopped. So I want to just check on that. We can hear you perfectly well, but I'm just gonna, if we can test it real quick. Oh, now you're back. Perfect.
No?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. And Sam, when you come back on, we're gonna retest your audio because we're getting a little fizz, just so you know, before Q&A. Awesome. Let's begin.
Okay, great. So you can see me. So you didn't see the mushy facial expressions I was making, but perhaps heard the mushiness in my voice. Let's see. I've set my little time timer to help with my time impairment for 15 minutes. But I'm going to that's as controlled as I've been. So I'm gonna just go where my heart is taking me here in terms of what poems I'm reading. This one is called Catastrophe is Next to Godliness. Lord, I confess, I want the clarity of catastrophe, but not the catastrophe. Like everyone else, I want a storm I can dance in. I want an excuse to change my life. The day Arun died, the sun was brighter than any sun. I answered the phone and a channel opened between my stupid head and heaven, or what was left of it. The blankness stared back, and I made sound after sound with my blood-wet gullet. Oh, unsayable! Oh, tender and divine unsayable! I knew you then. You, line straight to the planet's calamitous core. You, moment, moment, moment. You, intimate abyss I called sister for a good reason. When the bad thing happened, I saw every blade. And every year I find out what they've done to us, I shed another skin. I get closer to open air, true north. Lord, if I say, bless the cold water you throw on my face, does that make me a costume party? Am I greedy for comfort if I ask you not to kill my friends? If I beg you to press your heel against my throat, please, not enough to ruin me, but just so I can almost see your face. Disaster means without a star. I ended up doing a lot of kind of like etymology, like very basic etymology research for words like catastrophe and disaster and apocalypse in the course of writing this book. So disaster, no star. 66 million years after the end of the world, I click purchase on an emergency go bag from Amazon.com. When it arrives, I'll use my teeth to tear open the plastic, unzip the pack stitched by girls who look like me but for their N95s, half a judgment day away, no evacuation plan in sight. Another episode of the present tense, and I can't stop thinking about the timeline where the asteroid misses. Earth ruled eternally by the car-hearted and walnut-brained. Meanwhile, I'm merely gorging on the butterfly effects of ashes, reaching for the oat milk while hundreds of feet below, a chalk line marks the moment we were all doomed. We were done for. We were science fiction before science or fiction. 1 billion judgment days later, I'm alive and ashamed of my purchases. I'm afraid of being afraid. I'm the world's worst mother. My sister calls and it's already too late for things to be better. Every mistake, an asteroid that's already hit. History already mushroomed into 1 million species of unfit. Their fossilized corpses already forming coastlines, austere offices. This year was a layer cake of catastrophe, long before any of us could, biologically speaking, have been imagined. Human history, a front parlor infinitely painted over with massacre, and into the fray came I, highly allergic, quick to cry, and armed with fat fists of need. I broke everything I touched. I got good grades. I was told nothing was more noble than to ensure my children would eat. I learned to take a chicken apart with my hands, to fill in a scantron, cry on cue. 66 million years after the last great extinction, 6 to 8 business days before the next one, I whispered, speak to a fucking agent into the hold music to trigger the system into connecting me with a real person. I avoided coughing in public, though it was too late. I applied for a BIPOC farming intensive, though it was too late for the earth to yield anything but more corpses. New species of horror sequence were already evolving. Election bot, cluster biobomb, driverless wife. I muttered curses to keep the deepfakes away, studied the stars for signs of the worlds to come, though they were already here. The extinctions and feudal lords, the dirty blankets, the dissidents tied to stakes or hung from branches, the price gouge, death camp, flood, bombs of liberty, bomb and bomb and bomb already dropped, already having made me from its dust, already broken and paid for and straddling my crown. What crown? If I'm king of anything, it's being late. OMW, I type. though I'm still huddled in last year's mistakes. Asteroid, Alexa corrects, and I say, 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll be right there. That is a funny poem because I was 20 minutes late to our call time today. So it's true. If I am the king of anything, it's being late. Not a lie. Oh, I can't read that one. I'm gonna read I might not read all of them. Yeah, I'm gonna read at least a few poems from this series that all have the same name, based on a fact that I encountered while researching for this book, reading scholarship by Grace Cho, who is so brilliant. Research about the Korean War, and I think that these are the poems that I'm drawn to right now. The war poems, the poems that kind of came out of me because something in me remembers war, I guess, or is like has been made from what happens when something and somebody remembers war. I don't know. Upon learning that some Korean War refugees used partially detonated napalm canisters as cooking fuel. Somewhere in a prior world, a woman with my face is scraping the seeds from an unborn hell. All night, doom rang from the sky. And in the morning, there are mouths to feed. There are crocks in the cellar and the ruined crops, the early frost, the neighbor's red daughter strung up in the square. What else to do when the unspeakable comes? What to burn when it doesn't? Somewhere in a world that didn't quite end, a woman like me is foraging for that which failed to kill her. She is cranking open modernity's throat, wrenching her arc from its scat. She is a woman who can hack an impossible morning into water, bean paste, bitter leaves, another chance to fumble toward the next chance and the next. Every day of my life has been something other than my last. Every day an extinction misfires, and I put it to work. Upon learning that some Korean War refugees used partially detonated napalm canisters as cooking fuel. If a partway bomb, if a half-paused hell, if a killing failed can feed, if a death sentence incomplete, if a horror flopped, if extinction unlocks its jaw, if what didn't kill you makes you, if almost, if never, if the friction of did not succeed, if someone harnessed annihilation in service of a stew, if someone me-like can see disaster's refuse and think dinner, if they can gather reeds and soften them with the genius of unconsummated doom, if I can almost love the bomb that didn't burst then, if a war didn't end, if the war that didn't end helps me eat, if my swelling ends no hunger but my own, if my hunger ends not a thing. Upon learning that some Korean Slobbering a dog in the heat of the fact. Here, on the other side of what happened, I make nothing happen. Nothing, 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 flaccid as a gerund. Dead trees sharpening the sky. Once upon a time, the people whose nightmares I inherited were safe. Then they weren't. Hence, they were never safe. They survived however they could. They made daughters who married well and were proud in ordinary ways, or they were ashamed. Days passed. They chased vultures from their mothers, were stuffed with bloody rags, watched fire shock their limbs into myth. Days and days. Here, in the inconceivable future, I am unable to narrate, to speak in the simple past, facts lined up like soldiers on a horizon. I'm making nothing happen but my own drool, drooling, gaping, chomping at the ing, ing, ing. I make a nothing that whirs into being, feedback looping into a buzzsaw of nothing, dome of nothing, so big it rises, big enough to keep my people safe from the catastrophes that rain from plains. Before each catastrophe, a moment in which my people are safe, refuge of nothing, refuge of uneventfulness. First days, then days and days, in a dead tree's heart, an empty space. In the space, a small animal, useless, beautiful animal, stretching its wings, wings, wings. I'm just going to read. If I read one more teeny poem, is that okay? Is that okay? Okay. You can tell me if it's not. But I just want to say how unbelievably grateful I am to be part of this reading, to be among poets who I admire so much, to get a chance to kind of shelter in poems amid the despair of the news, the despair of watching Gaza be bombed into oblivion, to see that humanity kind of denied and denied and denied every day. I'm grateful to get to be here with you all, and to also to be hanging out with Charis Books, who I love so much. Yeah. This is a little prayer for all people who live, whose lives are shaped in some way by militarized borders. It's called Things That Already Go Past Borders. It's a little more. Things that already go past borders. Trade deals, pathogens, specific passports, particular skill sets, vegetables, car parts, streaming rights, seasonal workers, some insects, certain birds, religion, dialect, music at the right volume, headlights, human remains, wireless signals, all manner of money, of memory, people, in trucks, on trains, on foot, in line, in lines, charging checkpoints, wading waist deep through rivers, clinging to rafts or yawning their way through customs, sisters, separated for decades, whose faces are as foreign to each other as the faces of the dead, seeds, drones, prisoners on planes, dictators in motorcades, orders to kill, and longing. Yes, this most of all, the longing of families and the longing of storms. Thanks, y'all.
Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
We can, but there's an echo. So let's can you undo your AirPods and just go into the. Okay. You're just gonna have to unconnect and reconnect.
Hmm. How about now?
Much
Can you hear
better.
me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Thank
All right. Okay. So I'm a bit speechless listening to both of you. Thank you both for an amazing reading and amazing work. I've read both of these books in the silence of my house, and just hearing your language come to life in your own voice is just always such a gift. So thank you. So I guess I'll start out with a question, and I want this to be a discussion between the three of us. Feel free to ask each other questions or me questions, or comments. Just a place to talk and share. And anybody out there in the audience, we are really interested in any questions you may have for these amazing writers. So right now, I'm a relatively new dad to a young child. And I find that my imaginings of the future beyond my life, my friends' lives, or any one life, just seem to have taken on even a greater reality, anxiety, hope, but just thinking of the world that they will live in beyond my own life, if that's in the works. So both of your books, in acknowledging the past, obviously encounter possible futures. In your life right now, even past the writing of these books, have you noticed any difference between your earlier projections of the future? Had they changed? Has those projections changed or evolved?
I'm trying to unmute. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to do two things at once. Talk and unmute at the same time. But I think, I'm thinking as you ask the question, the only way I can think about how I think about the future is that it's just getting queerer and queerer, so that it just surpasses any other kind of imagination. Because I think that's the only way there can be one, is if we can, be queerer, queer, center the queer, or so that's, I know I love to answer questions with one word, and that would be mine. Just it's queerer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. I mean, for so many reasons. Like, I don't know. I feel like these days every time I walk into a room, somebody is quoting Munoz, but thinking about queerness as this like yearning for the better world, and this what allows us to feel that this world is not enough. And so yeah, I feel that like, not just that like queerness is something that like the cool thing that might happen in the future or something, like in the future world, well, like people, like the kids are gay these days, but like that it's the way, the lens that we can like bear to imagine a future into being, I feel like these days sometimes it's like I find it really painful to try to imagine the future. I mean, not even these days, just like generally. But I think that, yeah, I think it's the queer sort of like hope that allows it to be something like bearable to do that imagine. Yeah. I mean, I think like this is also like the kind of this question of like of trying to actually take seriously the idea that this isn't the end of the world is like one of the kind of like animating challenges of this book. Like, and it's something that I find really hard to do. Like, I hate not knowing what's going to happen next. Like, I hate not being able to predict the future. And I think that to try it has been like an exercise in a kind of like political engagement with hope, to try to like practice through poems tolerating the idea that I might not be able to predict the future, that the future might be something beyond anything that I've ever imagined before, stranger and weirder, and maybe like also in some ways okay, and in some ways, more horrible than I can imagine. But that's something that I cannot actually, with my mind right now, conjure into like an image. And that to try to like preserve some of that space of unknowing has been like the great task that has allowed me to bear the like despair that comes with working and thinking about like climate change that comes with like calling the reps every day and saying like just saying the same 20-word script over and over, and the kind of like the sort of despair that comes with that, and to keep open that little room in my mind that like I might not be able to, like, my despair is the part of me that thinks that she knows everything, and I just don't know. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I so identify with that. And also, that poem, Franny, you talk about where you pose once upon a time they were safe, and then they were not safe, and then they were safe, but I think that probably unlike any other time, we're constantly, what's constantly available to us, all like what's happening all around the world is constantly there, which these devastations that have happened over and over again in history, it may have been that in one part of the world, someone may not have been aware of what was going on across the ocean, and could live their life as if that was not happening, or something wasn't happening. Or if you were in the midst of death, to understand that there were even parts of the world where that was not, where something else was possible. But now we have all of this right here. And how do you take care of yourself in the midst of it, or do you regulate what comes into your space at any one time?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm very good at it, is the problem. Like, I think I can give my answer, but I don't know if it's going to be advice for anybody else, Like, I think that I'm probably like a lot of people, I go through like cycles of feeling like my entire brain is inside of my freaking phone, and it's just like the worst thing I've ever seen, and it's like all I'm eating for like 6 days straight or whatever. And then I get completely burnt out and leave it and flop around somewhere else. Like, I don't know. I don't think I'm good at it. I don't know. Soham, are you good at it? Can you do it?
No, I can't do it. If I know I have to talk to people, I won't listen to the news before that, And if I listen to the news, I was telling you this, Sam, the other night, like if I listen to the news, I'm like, when I'm listening to the news, I'm trying to like do yoga while I do it, to like try to add some strength to my body while it's weakening and I'm, it's just like a plight of an empath. It's just like, I just take it. So, just don't know. It's balance. I can't ignore it, but Yeah, and then just to be around like my kids, like when you know, kind of come back to your future question, it's like this sort of, it's not faking it, but sort of like having this optimism that I'm not trying to, they give me the optimism that, I'm trying to perform for them, but also, embody with them, because they'll go on, right? But it will go on. Something has to be destroyed first, and we're part of that, I think, right now.
Yeah. Well, in both of your work, you do talk so much, you speak so much to these acts of daily life, daily living, at the same time acknowledging history and acknowledging what else is happening, just the horrors that are happening around us. But you keep coming back, both of you, just to our daily acts of putting one foot in front of the other. So I think we all live with that double consciousness. I know when I'm with my 2.5-year-old, they're in a state they don't know anything except they don't know what's happening. And I don't want them to, I hope, if anything, I can give them some tools of resilience, because I know what's out there, but I don't, that helps me be very present in the moment. I have to be.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Oh, well, I guess I was gonna say I was unsatisfied with my answer before. I mean, it's true, but it's also unsatisfying. And I think that it's true that, I mean, I'm not a parent, but being in the classroom does it is a, it like takes so much energy from me on the one hand, but also to keep returning to that work of like, think your best thought, like make your best work, like try, stretching your brain a little farther. Like there is something very like hopeful about that, and it feels, especially when it has to. I mean, the horrors of the world like come into the classroom all the time, and to have that be the task at hand there's something about that brings me back to it. I also think that like, I don't know. I think that maybe like 70% of the reason that I've been involved in like activism, organizing work, has been as a way, a kind of despair staving off method of taking some of what, yeah, like as that we as like beating hearts absorb from the world, and finding it's like a place to put it, a thing that, if it helps like one family or one house or one, school, like that is something. Those are whole lives. And there's something about that fortifies me, but only so much.
Thank you so much. I just want to pause. Are there any questions from out there for these incredible folks?
There are some in the Q&A section.
Okay, I'm not seeing that. Maybe.
So over to the far right, underneath the chat, there's like a little question box.
Okay, got it.
And if you click on that, there are two questions there.
Okay. Committing the faux pas of doubling up on, this is from Billy Sainwood, who was one of our wonderful former readers on this series. Committing the faux pas of doubling up on questions, but don't feel obligated to answer or address both. Okay, one of the things I've encountered in transition is a similar understanding of my body, myself, as an ending and subsequent beginning. You think that understanding of the mutability of something, of the flesh, is somehow a part of envisioning a better future, or as Soham said, a queerer future.
I love this question. I think that there's something you know, as I've been sort of understanding myself as a non-binary person over the last few years, I've sort of been encountering over and over again the ways that it mm, like in just sort of like encountering my capacity for change. Or actually what I've been encountering is sort of like um my my belief that I didn't have the capacity for change, and kind of like uh uh pulling that wall, like hitting up against that wall, and like having to like put it, put it to the side or move around it. And Yeah, I think that there's some the at the risk of being like my spooky feelings are the world or something. That there's something I think about recommitting myself to the slightly ridiculous belief. So I've learned that I have the capacity for transformation and growth beyond what I knew of myself and the stories I told about myself and absorbed. There's something about that kind of makes anything else start to seem a little bit more possible, and um, the assumptions about the way the world works around me seem a little faker. And so I guess I don't think I'm doing a very good job at speaking to this, but I just want to say, like, I feel very kind of in kinship with that question right now and over the last few years specifically.
Love that.
Yeah, Billy, I love in your question that I'm thinking about the word mutability a bit more, you know? Because like I can be talking and put but my mouth is still moving, and so there's still that, there's still that essence of what is happening, or what is it's fueling, what we become. I used to be a little boy, until and that's gone, but also informs every turn I take, from here to eternity. And so this idea of quieting one sense doesn't, silence it. And so I really appreciate the way you throw that word into the question.
Beautiful question and answers. Thank you. I love just that opening. And maybe this is in both of your work too, that our understanding of what's happened and what's happening right now too, that they're questions to be changed by and questions to learn from, and that sort of that state of always being like that in some state that we don't know really, it's not an exact science about who we are and how we may be moving through the world.
And I think that this is like the great gift that trans literature has specifically given the world. It's like I mean, your work, Sam, all the language to swim around in that truth, and those spaces of possibility.
Yeah, thanks. See, it's almost time for us to end. I think Billy has one more question. Thank you, Billy. Maybe we can answer it. I think you were also referring to it already, Soham, but both Poets' Work Tonight is one of the most propulsive things about both Poets' Work Tonight is the way in which they focus on the ending of things, but see past them to something else. Was that hope or a sense of scope, or was that hope or sense of scope a direct intention, or did it come naturally out of research or composition? You're muted, Soham.
Sorry. My good friend Helene tells me I don't end poems, and I like that. That was like a high compliment to hear her say that. But with this particular book, it's part of a trilogy that I had planned, and so this was the last installation of the trilogy, and so that, you know, I was working towards that goal to say the end at the end of this book, so that I could be obsessed about something else in my writing life. So that was I don't know if I'm answering your question, Billy, but I'm just talking about how I put this book together. You know, it was like a 10-year process towards this end. So I think it did come out of, you know, I knew I had to end it here, and so I didn't want to end it in the middle. I could only end it at the very end. So it's a series. It's a bunch of pages that refuse to end until the end.
Tom, I mean, that was something I really appreciated and loved getting to kind of like linger in, is the kind of like non-ending endings of some of the poems, of many of the poems that you read tonight, like the way that they sort of like hang in the air. I think that's something that I've like, I've as a former slam kid, I've been in like a like maybe 10-year process of unlearning the idea that everything has to end with like, you know, a confetti gun. And because the confetti gun is cool, you know, it's like, it's really exciting. but I've yeah, I think that to kind of like allow things to linger and resonate is it's good practice for a lot of other things too, I think, you know. Good practice for letting the complications of things hang out in the air, rather than trying to like, you know, reduce down to the lowest, to the like reduce the fraction down, and or something, you know, to the easiest version of what has just happened. But to allow things to stay complicated, there's something that feels sort of like life-giving and life-saving about that. It's a way that I feel like I've been trying to grow my brain a little bit, and your poems help me in that direction.
And I think, just to kind of put just an ending that's a non-ending on this evening, that what's so extraordinary about both of your work, that you allow all the complications, both of you do, in different ways, but in similar ways too, that the complications to live on, that they do all exist at the same time. And I get that sense, which to me is a version of reality that I ascribe to very much. So thank you both so much for being here. And I'm going to turn this back over to E.R. Anderson.
Beautiful and life-giving, even in its complexity, and or maybe especially in its complexity and ambivalence. So it's the thing that I needed tonight. So I really appreciate y'all. Everybody who is watching, I don't know why I keep trying to fix this dang button and it's not working. So click this link to buy everyone's books tonight. Because this green button just keeps auto-correcting only back to Franny's book, which obviously you can click and get to that, but I want you to go to the page that has all the books on it. So click the link in the chat. You will also find Soham's books there, and we would love for you to explore our full series of Meet Me There poets. We're going to be doing this all year next year, which we're really excited about. We'll have a short summer break, but otherwise we're going to be in full effect. This Saturday is Charis's holiday party. Everyone is invited. There's going to be lots of homemade cookies. So if you're in Atlanta, it's one of our favorite times of the year. Everything's on sale. And in terms of bringing joy, at a very hard time, come gather with folks who are sitting in that deep ambivalence, and taking it one day at a time. We'd love to be with you and help you kind of be in that space with one another. So come see us in Decatur, Georgia. And obviously, keep reading beautiful poetry, because it does change us.
These
They are.
Yeah, I just want to say that next month on January 11th, the next iteration of the series, and we will be featuring T.C. Tolbert and his new chapbook called The Quiet Practices, and Genesis B, who is an Atlanta poet and writer who has a new book out. And just join us then, January 11th, same time, 7:30 ET.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Please be safe and well. And we hope to see you in Atlanta at Charis sometime soon. So until then, take care. Good night.
Good night.
My friends, thank you.